There's something we can talk about. The word live. When I was a little kid, I wasn't 100% clear as to what the word live meant. Because oftentimes, if I was watching TV and it was like a live broadcast of Nick Jr. or PBS or whatever, and it was not recorded on one of my tapes, my mom would tell me that this is not a tape, this is live. I didn't fully pick up the whole not a tape thing, and usually when I saw something that was on the air live, it was a very different episode than what I was used to watching on my tapes, and therefore I assumed that the word live meant kind of like a novelty episode of one of my favorite shows. An episode that I may or may not have seen before, but is very different than what I usually watch, because with my recorded VHS tapes, I watch those like over and over and over again, like from dozens to hundreds of times. So if I saw an episode of Little Bear Blues Clues on a tape that I did not watch very often, the episode was like kind of a novelty for me, and I would just automatically assume that this episode was quote-unquote live. I thought that was the correct terminology for an episode that I don't usually watch. But it was on a tape, so obviously it wasn't live. It wasn't until I was a little bit older that I learned that live meant like live on the air and not recorded on a tape. But yeah, the first couple times I saw this episode of Reading Rainbow, and LeVar was talking about live theater, I figured maybe he meant like some really special novelty show that you don't see very often, record or not record. But I'd never really been to any kind of theater at that point, movie or live, so I wouldn't know the difference between a movie theater or a live theater. And yes, it's the middle of winter, so I am a little bit sniffly. Sorry about that. LeVar says it's matinee day in New York City, which means that the theaters are having a special afternoon performance. And so now LeVar has to decide which show he wants to see, and it's going to be tough for him because there's a lot to choose from. And as he's saying all this, he's just stepping out of the shower, grabbing his robe and bath towel and getting ready to dry off, and he's actually shivering just slightly. And then we abruptly cut to some scenes of New York City with some really lively, grand music playing. And during that entire piece of music, there was a very quick montage of all these New York City and Broadway scenes. First we see Times Square, and then a street sign for Broadway. There's a big marquee for Beauty and the Beast. Another one for Luis Bravo's Forever Tango. The Phantom of the Opera. There's another sign that says Art. Was that a Broadway show? Art? I'm looking it up here. Art, A-R-T, was a critically acclaimed play by Yasmina Reza. It's a story about three friends arguing over a white painting. The production explores friendship and art. Okay. Never heard of that one before.